The next subtopic we'll look at is motives of holding cash. This is different from the whole objective of cash management that we have looked at. Okay, those objectives talk of why we need to manage cash in the best manner possible. These motives speak of why does a business need to hold a certain level of cash at any given point of time. Why is cash kept in the business? Okay, a minimum balance of cash maintained in the business. Okay, now we're well aware that any given point of time, given a month or in a year, the inflows of cash of the business cannot always match the outflows. Okay, maybe a certain month a lot of cash came in, that is all your debtors paid in time and the cash came in, whereas not a lot of expenses happened. Okay, the outflows were lesser. In some other month it could be the other way around. You may have lesser or a lot of outflows but lesser inflows. That means your debtors might delay payments that they're supposed to make to you, so inflows are delayed and the outflows continue. For example, things like salary, it's an outflow and it will continue irrespective of how much profit you're making, how your business is going, how much sales and everything. For example, just take the lockdown during the COVID-19 situation last year. Right? There were so many businesses that were shut down by temporarily. Of course they could not work on a day-to-day basis, but they still had to continue paying salaries to their employees. Like even the government said that employees should not suffer, they should be paid salaries during the time of the lockdown, isn't it? So production didn't happen, sales didn't happen during that time. That means there was no inflow of cash, money did not come in as regularly as it should be coming, but outflows was still there. Like if somebody had to pay the shop rent, that rent had you still had to pay that rent despite the lockdown, isn't it? If there were salaries, those salaries again had to be paid even despite the lockdown and your temporary shutdown in production and sales. Correct? So because of this reason, you need to have a certain minimum balance of cash with you, because your inflows may not always come in time and you still need cash, you still need the money to pay all these other expenses and meet your cash outflows. Fine? Now in this context, we are going to look at three major motives of holding cash. Okay? Everything that we've discussed so far is going to somehow fall in each one of these three categories. The first one is the transaction motive. I'll list out all three of them first. We have the transaction motive. Second, we have something called a precautionary motive. And third is a speculative motive. Very interesting terms, all of these, and we're going to see how uh, you know, cash plays a picture in order to meet each one of these motives. Now, the first one is the most common objective of cash that we have. We need cash to meet all type of transactions, right? So, if you have a cash balance, you're required to maintain, in fact, a cash balance so that you can meet whatever day-to-day expenses are incurred or arise in the business. Okay, so transaction motive is for that. That means anything comes up, any type of expense comes up, you will be in a position to pay that with the cash which you are holding. So all the transactions, different types of outflow expenses. Okay, so these include making payments for salaries, right? These include making payments for wages, salaries, then whatever outflows we have discussed yesterday, like bills. Sometimes even interest needs to be paid, isn't it? If you have taken a loan from a bank and along with you in your EMI, both the principal amount and that interest amount is combined. It's a combination of the two things. So even to pay off this interest or to pay off even dividends to your shareholders, you require cash. So meaning you require funds, right? So that cash has to be made available. Then of course raw materials are an important transaction that take place, correct? So the cash is collected or brought into the business by way of collection from debtors, alright, or the general regular cash sales that you make, okay, and whatever other investments you hold. Fine, you may earn interest on some investments. So all the cash that comes in is held by the business in order to meet all these different types of transaction motives. Is this clear? Then secondly, we have a very important one called the precautionary motive. Now what does this word precautionary tell you? To take precaution means to be prepared for something unforeseen or something that could be damaging. Okay, to take precaution against a particular risk, right? That means you are preparing, you are keeping a sort of a backup so that if a certain situation arises, you are able to easily handle it or come out of it. Okay, so a precautionary motive. Now, how does cash help as a precaution, or what is the precautionary motive behind holding cash? There can be a lot of unforeseen events or circumstances in the business. Am I right? You can have natural calamities. There could be floods, there could be earthquakes, or any other sort of heavy rains and any other sort of natural calamities that could take place, isn't it? There could be even man-made sort of calamities or instances or incidents in the form of, it could be, let's say, a strike or a lockout. For example, if your employees for some reason have an industrial dispute with the management and they tend to go out on a strike or stop production for that period of time, or there may be even a lockout wherein you don't allow the employees inside the business or inside the factory premises because they are damaging the factory premises. Okay, so a lot of these circumstances can lead to a lot of uncertainties. The main effect or the impact of these calamities and these circumstances is that it damages or it disrupts your production. Okay, if there's a flood, if there is a lockdown, or if there is any type of disputes with the employees, the first thing that happens is your production gets affected, right? Production is going to stop for a long period of time. You won't be able to sell any products during that time, but all your other expenses are going to continue. Okay, so as a precaution against such type of events that may happen, you need to hold enough amount of cash in order to meet any expenses that might arise during this period. Fine. So like let's say a 2-month lockdown, for 2 straight months, no production, no sales. But if you had enough cash, if you had kept enough cash with you, okay, you had made your collection from debtors and everything, and you have good amount of cash, then you can use that cash to make all your different payments. Fine. So that's a precautionary motive. You are prepared, you have that enough cash, and you are now prepared to meet any expenses that might arise in the future. Okay, and the last one, sorry, yeah. So the last one that we have, we call it the speculative motive. Now, what do we understand by the term speculative or speculation. In this case, we are saying speculation is again trying to be futuristic, trying to anticipate certain changes in prices of your stock or of the securities or anything in the future. Okay, so you feel that the prices of, let's say, raw materials are going to increase in the future. What do? You buy a lot of raw material today itself, right? Like things like vegetables, for example, their prices keep rising, isn't it? We've had so much of increase in the prices of vegetables, which are again associated with the prices of petrol and diesel prices, isn't it? Now, say for example, you are someone that runs a petrol pump or a petrol dealership, correct? And you know that prices are rising almost every day. So what do? You know that prices of petrol and diesel are going to rise the next week once again, and this week you buy an excess stock, you buy a little more stock, or full stock of that petrol or diesel while you are getting it at a lesser price. Have you followed? Because if you wait for another week, you're going to have to pay a much higher price for that petrol and diesel, correct? So if at all you speculate that prices of raw material are going to rise, okay, if they will increase in the future, then you tend to buy a high stock, right? You buy an excess stock. Same way, if you feel the prices of your raw material will fall in the future, then what do? In that case, you are going to, you're not going to sell your raw material, you already have the raw material, fine, but you want to buy more raw material. You know that the prices of this same raw material will fall, will go down in the next month. So you delay your purchases, right? You don't buy the raw material this week because prices are a little too high. You wait for another week and then buy your raw material. So you delay it. Okay? So for such speculation, you require cash. So the moment you find out prices are about to increase next week, you're going to buy today itself. And to buy today itself, you need a good sufficient amount of cash with you, isn't it? So you have to have enough cash holding for this speculation that you are carrying out. Okay? Same way, businesses, they invest in different securities, in different deposits, okay? There also they speculate, correct? If they feel that the interest rates are about to increase, okay, then they buy the securities or those investments at that time, isn't it? The moment they know the rate of interest is about to increase on certain securities or certain bonds or government bonds, that is when they are going to buy. Okay, when interest rates are higher. Is this clear? Okay. And same way with other things like property, premises, plant and machinery. Everything that a business purchases as assets, whether fixed assets or current assets, they are going to see whether prices will rise or fall. They are going to always speculate and buy only when the price is good for them, only when the price is extremely favorable for them. Is that fine? So we have all these motives, all these speculative motives, your transactionary motive first of all, secondly precautionary, and finally your speculative motive. Basically, the reasons why a business holds a sufficient amount of cash at all given points of time.